Hello and welcome back to part 2 of this Scriptcase training. Today we are continuing with the inventory management system we had begun in part 1. So we had a inventory management system we had started creating within Scriptcase, and the entire purpose of this is to show you how quick and easy it is to actually develop platforms within Scriptcase, to show off some of the capabilities, features, and pretty much how great it is in project and platform development. Okay, so we will continue from where we had left off in the previous video. If you hadn't seen part 1 yet, do please check out the description below, and you should have a link there to find the previous part. Okay, so within Scriptcase, we had just created this grid. We had added an insert product button, as well as the edit capability. So previous to that, we had created those grids, all with the batch application creator, which was quite speedy and rapid in the creation of each of these applications. So for this grid application, we did apply something slightly different so that we have the items inserted within a separate application. Okay, so the majority of admin applications are near enough complete. And what I will do then is I will go ahead and add one final one here. So if I come here to the admin folder and click new application, and what I want to do is create already the admin dashboard. So here is called dashboard. Just add admin in the front and I will create that. Okay, so I like to have customized dashboards for per user group. So that's something I have applied within this project, which the original one didn't have. So what I've done here, first, what we're doing here now is creating this dashboard. So it's just prepared. And then towards the end of the training, we will create the linkage and so on, as well as the final dashboard for the warehouse coordinators. So the first thing I want to apply here for the admin dashboard is here something very basic, so that you can see some employee statistic maybe. And here I will apply the title employees, and then here we can apply various grids that we want to apply. So we haven't actually created the employees yet or the coordinators, and both of those tables are the grids, which I would actually apply here. So I'm not going to add anything in here. I'm just going to title it for now and then click save, and then we can come back to this later and add our applications. So here I'll add the coordinators. Again, click save. I'll adjust it. Well, we can actually set on top nice and big so we can see the grid afterwards. And then we can just go ahead and save that for the time being. So now the dashboard here, once we have applied our link widgets, we do have here index widgets also, and we can also create our own widgets, so to say. So we can do that by adding link widgets as I've just done so. And instead of actually creating here a link to a grid or a form application, we can also use a blank application, charts, and so forth. So we can customize the information that is displayed here within the dashboard. So within each dashboard element, we link the application. We have toolbar functionalities which we can apply when available, as well as properties. So if I come here now and run this dashboard, we can see here we have here various abilities which allow the full screen view of the applications that we display within the grid application. We can close them here also, decrease them, and so on. So here within the properties, we can actually make adjustments to that and change that these elements are not collapsible, that they are not maximizable, they're unable to move them, and so on. We can even reload them. So these are elements that we can apply to each of these. This is all down to your own project when you create that. So for now, I'm just going to go ahead and save again the dashboard as it is. We'll come back to this later and apply the employees as well as the coordinators and grid applications. Okay, so then the next applications we want to create are then for the warehouse. So if I come back here to root, and I will create another folder, and this time I will call it warehouse. Okay, so I'm creating folders each time so I can keep track of the applications and organize them according to where they will be used within the project. So here for the warehouse, for instance, I will again go new application. In fact, let's skip that. And again, we will come here to applications, batch applications, and we will come here and select employees. and go form and grid, go next. Because we do need these linked together, so we may as well create this as they are. I will generate the source code and open them to edit, and then click finish. Okay, so now that the applications have been created, they are now opening so that we can edit them. So we have here, first of all, the grid employees as well as the form employees. So if I go ahead and run the grid, first of all, we can see here we have the list of employees available within our company, and we have the ID, we have edit features, as well as the add new capability, and navigation between the form and grid, and typical column sorting export features, as well as the quick search. So we have here also the detail. So I don't tend to use these very often. So what I will do here, again, for this application, I will remove the detail, summary, and chart. I will leave the search and the grid application. So I'll save that. And again, here in edit fields, I'll go ahead and make some adjustments to the information here. So we have here the country. So I will apply country, warehouse, and then employee name, birth date, phone number, and we have here number document. I guess is then the document applied. And we have here also below the user login, as well as then the country here. So we want to view also the login. So I'll apply that here to the end and run that again. And now we can see all of the fields that we want to have visible within this application. So we need to adjust here the country and the warehouse. So let's quickly do that. So here within Scriptcase, I select fields, come to the country ID. Again, we are going to apply a lookup or create the selection, select the table, countries, country name, yes. So choose the connection and select then the warehouse, again, automatically saving, and apply the feature again here for the warehouse. Warehouse is warehouse name. Yes, choose the connection again, and then we can run our employee grid application. Okay, so we have here now our employees ready. We can add new ones. So let's adjust here now. First of all, the form. We have here the form. Let's come here to edit fields. The employee ID I will move down. I will move the warehouse and country ID up. The document I will remove down, and the user login I will move up slightly. Okay, so the fields have now slightly been adjusted. Again, we need to apply the select and the auto lookups for the country and warehouse. So again, here I will select the countries table, country, yes, choose the connection. We'll again use a title for the form, and then for the warehouse, again, we create the select, warehouse name, yes, choose the connection, and again, use a title. Now, in this case, you may want to again link the country and warehouse together. So that is something we could do here, again, using here the Ajax events. So for the warehouse, we would then here apply from where, and then it was country ID equals, and then here the form variable country ID. Okay, so now I save that, and if I run this form, when adding new, I can select the country. Again, we had warehouses in Mexico, so I select Mexico, and here the warehouse ID should load, but we didn't apply the Ajax. So here on the country ID, we need to apply that. Here the checkbox, use Ajax to reload other fields, and here we want to select warehouse on, and then we can run that again and add new. Then we go Mexico, and now here the warehouse information is updated. Now I see here for the document country, we need to adjust this also. So let's change that. As country, create select, docx country document. Yes, choose connection, use title, run. And now our employee form is ready. So we can come here, add new. We can select the type of document. So again, we want to apply here the Ajax. So let's go ahead and do that so that we have the correct documents per country that have been selected, displayed here. So here for this table, if we have a look here at the selection within the database, so we have here identity docx country, and then we have ID country. So from where ID country equals country ID. We can save that. And then again here on the country ID, we enable here for the Ajax. We select the doc country and also select on. Save that and then run. Now when adding a new employee, I select the country. The warehouses are displayed and the relevant documentation required for that country is then also indicated. Okay, so the employees form and grid are now ready. So if I go ahead and close these. And then now what I want to do is within the warehouse folder, I will create two new folders, inventory, and create, come back to warehouse, and then also create inventory movement, inventory movement, and create. Okay, so for the inventory folder, we are going to create a new application, and this will be a grid application. Okay, so here I will be applying a custom MySQL statement. Instead of selecting here a table, I will apply that here. Okay, so what we're doing is we're combining multiple tables and then displaying all of that information within this one grid. So we have here the item warehouse with the stock available, the measurements that are being used, the purchase and selling price, the brand, and again the warehouse information all displayed nice and neatly within this application. So in such a case, when we specify the SQL statement ourselves, we need to define here also the grid name, as it was not automatically generated. So here I will again call it grid inventory and then adjust underscore warehouse, and go ahead and click the create button. Okay, so I now run this grid application. We can see that we are requiring an employee ID. So here I will add 2, and then we can view the item transfers between the warehouses from employee number 2. Okay, so this allows employees then to view the transactions that are sent from one warehouse to another. So here we want to make some slight adjustments to this grid. So here what I would then do is we want to hide here the warehouse ID. We want to have the brand at the top. We then also want the item. So these are items within the table which are not displayed, which we are then adding here to the view. So we have brand, item, stock available. We want here then the measurement, min quantity, and max quantity. The reorder point, so when quantity has reached this reorder point, then items would be renewed. So we have then also the transfer and settings we want to apply to this. So if I move here the active and save, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create 2 new fields. Click next, and then this first one I'll call this transfer, and then the second one I'll call it settings. Okay, item transfer, settings. Okay, and then create. And now we have 2 extra fields applied here. Now for each of these fields, what I'm going to do is apply a very simple image. So if I come here to the data type, and I will select HTML image, and then here select the image manager, and then we can then select either some Scriptcase images. I'll use some of my general images. Let's come here to icons instead, and then here has a transfer icon. So if I use here this icon here for transferring, and then for settings, we'll apply the same HTML image, and here we will use a settings icon. So I come here and settings. We have here a nice little icon we can use, add that. And now if I run the grid application, we'll have our fields organized. So again, I add an employee ID. We have now the option to transfer and the option to view settings. So we'll customize these in a moment. And we still have here the item information, which has been moved between warehouses. Okay, so the next thing we want to do then is link these 2 applications. And we can do that here for the settings directly here. So we need to first of all create the applications for this link. So I'm just going to go ahead and save this for the time being, and then we can come back to that one in a moment. Okay, so then the next form we want to create is within inventory management, and here I'll create new application. So here then we want to create the forms, which I'm going to link to this grid application. So I'll select form, and here I will select the transfers table and click create. And then I will create another application, which is again a form. And this time here, select the inventory adjustment warehouse and click create. Okay, so now here for the inventory adjustment, we can make some quick adjustments here. So first of all, I will move the basic ID down. And then we have the fields that we want here. So we want to have our date. We want to have our warehouse. And here the main warehouse, then the warehouse. And then we want the measurement also. Adjustment should be up here also. And description, let's just drag that down here. Okay, so now if I run this, we can see that this form will need some adjustments here for the IDs which have been displayed here. So we will quickly change those, as well as here for the employer ID. So let's quickly change those here within the form. Let's just go ahead and copy the previous. I'll paste that in here. What we're going to do then is select the item warehouse and display the item name from the actual view table. And then where the item ID item warehouse equals the var warehouse ID, this one here. So now if we come here to warehouse ID, we need to select here again also the selection. So again here I will apply a custom selection where now we select the warehouse, display the warehouse name from employees, as well as the warehouses table where the ID of the employee and warehouse match. Okay, so this will then ensure that the warehouses are suitable for the specific employees. So we have then here also the measure field. We need to adjust this also. And this was then also via a warehouse. So again here via the warehouse ID. We have then the adjustment ID. And what we want to do with the adjustment ID is actually where adjustment ID is not 2 or 3. Okay, so these are specific reasons that we have within the table. And if we look here within the table, we have here the adjustment table. And we can see here the specific reasons. So if these shipping goods have been ordered by another warehouse or requesting goods from another warehouse, then the information will change depending on the reason, of course, and the adjustment warehouse factors that we have applied here. Okay, so we still need to apply here the employee ID, and here we only want to specify the actual employee that is viewing this. So if we use select again, and here I will again apply the select ID employee from the employees table. We would indicate the name of the employee, but then where the current employee is being presented. Only the employee, or when this ID is provided, would this specific value be presentable. So if I now run this form, we have here then first of all the warehouse ID as well as the employee ID. Okay, so if I now add, for instance, the employee ID and run this, we will be missing the warehouse ID, and it will present an error message. So we will need to provide the values for both. So for this example, I'll select 22, run the form, and then we will have all of the values displayed. If the variables are not provided, then the form will generate an error message. So in this scenario, we can see that we have the specific items from this warehouse, the units, and the employee here selected. We have the available, adjusted, and new quantities described here. And then what we need to do then is come out of this, come back to our form, and now let's adjust then the transfer form before we link the two of them together. Okay, so in the transfer form, we can then view the edit fields again. And then here, let's just quickly adjust the fields we have here. So I'm just going to quickly drag and drop them around. So we had here for the art warehouse, the source warehouse, the measurement, the destination warehouse, and so forth. So of course we can make adjustments to these fields how we please and have them displayed any way we like within this form with ease. So I'm just going to go ahead and run that as it is now. And then we can just quickly adjust the fields that we have here. Now, as we have the majority of these are the same as the other form, we can again just copy and paste them from previous. So if I come here to the fields and here the art X warehouse ID, again here the same lookup I will apply where we're displaying the item name and actually gathering this from the view, not from the data table. And then we have here also the measurement. And again here we will be defining this on the warehouse ID and again also from the view. We also then have the source warehouse here. So in this case what we want to do is change here the data type to a select, and then for the lookup again we have here custom select we're applying. The warehouse name is being displayed, which has actually been taken from the employees as well as the warehouses table. And then we're combining that so that the values are always matching. We have here then also quantity available source. We need to adjust this here to a select also. And in this case, again, we will be using a lookup for the VW items warehouses table. So again, the view table where the warehouse ID is actually specified. So next one we have here is then we should have here the destination. So here we have the destination warehouse. In fact, we have here destination warehouse. Sorry, so let's correct that. So for the destination warehouse, again, we need a select. And here I'll again apply custom statement. So I expand that. So we're selecting then from the warehouses table where the warehouse ID is not available within the employees table. So again, we are combining the tables and ensuring the correct data is available. So we have then the next up field, which we have here quantity available. We find that quantity available for destination, this one here. And again, here we will apply a select field and a custom statement again. So here we are then this time looking for stock available where items within specific warehouses are available. Okay, so we have next up here adjustment ID. So for the adjustment ID, again, we need to apply the same as we had previous. when not 2 or 3. So when the reason 2 or 3 is not selected. We have then also the employee ID here, which we again only available select when the employee ID is presented. Okay, so now we have our base form filters ready. I think it's best I actually do adjust these into a more presentable way. So we have here the artex warehouse, the measure ID, source warehouse. Now we need then quantity available source, and then quantity available destination, so that we do not mix these up. Okay, so destination warehouse, and then quantity available destination. We can then have the adjustment ID, the description, transfer quality, and then the new quantity available source, destination, and then the employee ID. Because the employee ID, we can actually move that up here also. Run that. And we now have a complete form. So if I again add 2 for warehouse employee and add new, we have now select fields for each of these. And the form is near enough ready. Okay, so for each of these forms, for here the transfer as well as the inventory adjustment, we still need to make some adjustments to the events. So let's start with that here for events on application init. So here we want to start the transfer form new, and then we want to apply it then on validate. We first of all want to change if the quantity available at destination is null, i.e. not available, that then we indicate that there is no product available on this destination. In such a case, we will then display an error message to the user. Okay, so the next up thing we want to do here is then also, if we make adjustments, we have here the adjustment ID. If it is ID 2 or ID 3, then we want to add up the source quantities, so new quantity and quantity available minus the transfer quantity. So we are doing applying some calculations here for the fields, which will then be automatically applied. Now, if there is an issue with the count that we have going on above, then we apply an error message. So if transfer quantity is more than the quantity available at source, then the stock is not available. So we display that to the end user, and then we exit the error message. And the same below. Now the calculation is just plus instead of minus. And again, the stock is not available. So I'll save that. So this will then occur on validation. So when the user clicks here on add, it will give us the specific error messages according to the selections. So now after insert, so on after insert, we want to then check if a record is available within the database. So here, for instance, we can use here the macros. So if I come here, check for an existing record or select fields from another table. There we go. And then here, I want to select the item underscore ID. And this is then from the VW underscore items X warehouses, where the item ID item X warehouse equals then here our field art X warehouse underscore ID. Okay, so then we want to change here and add a variable, and then we say item ID. You can remove then the other options here. And here I will adjust that. So if item ID item ID can then equal 0. Okay, so next what we want to do then is apply our own update statement so that the warehouses are updated accordingly. So I will then go ahead and we will then create here SQL equals, and we can then create here our select. So we want to then update the table items X warehouses, and there we want to set stock available equals and that wants to then be our field new quantity available sauce. Okay, where warehouse ID equals and this time source warehouse underscore ID and item underscore ID equals our variable item ID we had created just before, and then we can close that up and then sc exec SQL, and then we can define here SQL to launch, and then we want to commit the transaction, commit underscore trans and brackets again. Okay, so this one will update the origin stock, and then we want to then also update the destination stock. Okay, so let's just copy this here. And in this case, it is new source destination. Ouch. Destination warehouse. Okay, so once the stock is then updated, we then also update the relevant tables accordingly. Okay, so then within the other form we have here, the form TB inventory adjustments, we still need to add our events here. So let's quickly apply those, and then we can finish off and link the applications together. So the inventory adjustment here on application init, we also want to start this application new. So form TB inventory adjustment warehouse start new, and the next thing we want to change is on the onValidate again, and this time we want to perform a very basic calculation. So here we are taking the field new quantity equals quantity available plus quantity adjustment. Okay, and then we want to also on after insert, we now want to update the stock count. So update. So then here again, we can create our SQL statement. So we then update TB underscore item X warehouses, and we set stock available equals our field new quantity. new quantity. Okay. Where ID item warehouse equals, again, our field variable part x warehouse underscore ID, which we have here, part x warehouse underscore ID. And then we can finish that off. sc exec. So we run our code, SQL, and again we commit our trans. So now we have the update for transfer as well as adjustments within the warehouse ready. So then we maybe want to apply here an extra script. So if I come here and we can just apply an echo here, which would then just indicate that the inventory has been updated. And then we can then also create or use the macro sc redirect or redir and redirect the user then to the grid inventory adjust underscore warehouse grid. So then we need a comma again, and here we want to apply a self. Okay, so we can then save that, and let's go ahead and run our complete form. So again, add the IDs, and we can now see. Okay, so we have requirement for date. We could of course add requirements to each of these fields or those that are required depending on, and then values are then presented. Okay, so we can then first of all see here, if I add another item, and we add, say, today's date or a date, unit. Okay, so we're tied to the warehouse 2 and user 2, and then if I add those, we are then sent back to our grid, which is at the moment non-existing. Okay, so save that and then run our grid, and then the form would then redirect to our grid application. Excellent. So let's now create the link here for the item transfer and settings, which then links to the two forms we've just created. So then here for the transfers, first of all, I'll create a new link, and then here I can just search for transfer, select the form, go next, and here what we want to do then is no value for the employee ID and no value for the ID transfer. So here fields no value, and then we use the warehouse ID for the field to select the warehouse. Okay, so we can open up in the same window. We don't want to enable insert or transfer. So here we do want to enable the insert, remove the update and delete, and click save. And then for the settings field, we apply also the new link, and this time we indicate here the inventory adjust warehouse. Click next. Again, no value, and for the warehouse, again, the field. Confirm that, and again, remove the update, delete, and go ahead and save the grid application. Okay, so now go ahead and run the grid. Enter my employee ID. We can now select to transfer items as well as view settings from items. Okay, so the details are still there also available, and we still do have quite a few applications to create. So let's quickly jump on and close the applications we currently have. And then what I'm going to do is return here to root and create a new folder, this time called warehouse coordination. Click create. And here I will first of all create a folder called inventory. And click create. And return back to the warehouse coordination folder. Okay, so now here I will again use the batch applications. And this time select the table coordinators, so the form and the grid. Click next. And again, generate source to edit. Okay, so the applications are now created, being generated, and opening so that we can begin editing them. Now the coordinators is pretty similar to the employees, so I'm not going to do a great deal here. We can again just adjust the fields really quickly, indicate that the data is correct. So let's just quickly do that here for the warehouse, for instance. We'll have an ID here. So if we run that, we can see quickly that we have then IDs being presented here instead of the country name, the document type, and the warehouse. So let's just quickly apply those with the lookup methods. So here for the warehouse, so the warehouse name, I'll choose the connection again. Again, apply that also for the docx country. Docx country, document, yes. Select the connection, and then also for the country. Okay, select country and the connection, and I can run that grid again, and now those values are displayed correctly. Now for the coordinators, we already have here the add new, so we can add coordinators very easily. Again, we can quickly adjust here the field. So here for form, change here the layout and positioning of some of the fields. However you please. And then of course we can adjust then the data that is displayed within the drop-down menus. So here for the warehouses, display the warehouse name, use the title, also for the country. Again, we would want to use Ajax to load warehouses according to countries for specific users. So we should do that in a moment. And also the documents. Okay, so identity, documents. Okay, so now here for warehouses. Now for the warehouses, I need to just double check again in the database. For the warehouses, country underscore ID. Okay, save that. And for the docx, check here, docx ID country. Okay, so if I run that now, we have now the country, correct documents, as well as the warehouse indicated. If I go add new. Okay, so these have no results right now. We need to run these on Ajax. So if I then come here to country, and then here I'll select to use Ajax for both of these tables. So docx country as well as the warehouse. And if I save that now, again, run the form application, add new, and now if I select here the country, the warehouses are presented as well as the documents for that country. Okay, so we're advancing quite nicely here. So we now have the coordinators as well as the employees tables ready. We still have a few more here to create for the inventory as well as the security and final adjustments. Okay, so we did create previously the admin dashboard. So we're going to return there quickly, and we're going to go ahead and add now the grid for the coordinators. So I select that and save it. And then also for the employees, save that. And now our admin dashboard is also ready. Okay, excellent. So that is all for part 2. I hope to see you again soon in the final part 3 of this Scriptcase training, where we will continue with this project. We will create the final applications as well as then the group security for this project, where we will then also customize the login page and make some final adjustments to this project, which you can then also customize further yourself or use within your own project as a project, or simply to learn from. Thank you very much for watching today. I hope to see you again shortly in part 3.